lead Republican. So thank to him as well.
Thanks, Senator Klobuchar. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being with us. Recently, my staff was over at the Memphis facility that you all have, and what they heard from the team there is they're short on staffing, which seems to be a problem across the country, but also there is a malfunctioning sewer system there. There is a substantial mold and mildew outbreak there. So I'd like to know what your approach is to cleaning up that facility, getting it fully staffed. Have you looked at this?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, we've looked at this broadly as it relates to staffing across the country. I'm not familiar with the specific instances that you've mentioned at the Memphis facility, but from an infrastructure spot in the organization, we have infrastructure issues everywhere. In fact, the agency prioritized just the top life and safety issues, and it's a $2 billion deficit that needs to be addressed.
How do you plan to make this more specific to the facilities that are in question? Because this is of concern to those in Memphis, and it's of concern to me.
Thank you, Senator. It's also a concern of mine. When we look at these older facilities that now are at the very end of their lifetime replacement cycle, we have institutions across the country that are in dire need.
What is your specific plan for addressing these issues? How are you going to look at each one specifically? So if you're not prepared for that today, then submit that to me in writing so I'll know how to respond to the employees that are there at the Memphis facility.
What I can say, Senator, is that the Bureau has already prioritized those in life and safety categories as the most important ones to tackle first. Where Memphis falls on that prioritization, I don't know, but we can get that to you, Senator.
Perfect. That'll be great. Thank you for that. During his first week in office, President Biden did an executive order, and it's prohibiting the Attorney General from renewing DOJ contracts with private prisons. And that is very curious to me because it seems we don't have enough prisons, they're in bad shape, and I was interested to know if you expect that they're going to continue to devalue and decrease the use of private prisons, or do you plan to go back to using some of these facilities to relieve some of the pressure that is on the federal correctional facilities?
Thank you, Senator. We will continue to implement the President's executive order. We have 2 institutions that still have Bureau adults in custody in them.
So even though you cannot handle what you have now, you will not use private facilities. Is that what you're telling me?
Senator, I didn't say that. We have plans to absorb those adults in custody who are currently in those private prisons in our existing capacity.
But you've sat here today and told us that you don't have enough staff, you have facilities, you've got $2 billion worth of needs, so what you're saying doesn't make sense. Let me ask you this. How is it that the unions affect this use of private prisons? How does that play into your decision and the President's decision?
Senator, I'm not familiar with any involvement between those two, the union and this decision. I'm sorry, I don't have that information.
You've never thought about it?
No, ma'am.
You haven't thought about it. I find that very interesting. Well, I think we're all very concerned about the condition in these facilities and how they've fallen into disrepair and the amount of attention that is being paid to these issues. And let me ask you this. You've talked about all these issues that need to be handled, but then I saw that you all had done a $1.5 million contract with a company for developing transgender programming. So what is the justification for spending that kind of money to develop programming when you have physical facility needs that are running up around $2 billion?
Senator, I'm not familiar with that contract. I do know that at the Bureau, we do prioritize individual case management based on risk and need, and that would include our transgender population, who everyone in our care is allowed community standard of care.
Well, you continue to use everyone in your care, but yet the facilities do not accommodate a proper standard of care. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Senator Hirona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.